Hello, here we are looking at the weekly global trends and forecast 15 to 21st January, that is the third week of this year, covering global, the Middle East, Indo-Pacific, South Asia, and India. Coming on to the most important global event which occurred in the past week was, of course, the Global Economic Forum at Davos, which was attended by the global leaders who's who, commencing with US President Donald Trump. Much was discussed between the political, economic, and business leaders at this seminal annual event held each year. Does it provide any hope for resolving multiple geopolitical and geoeconomic issues in the days ahead? We'll have a look and see. Firstly, when you're looking at the global trends and forecast, we must work on the hierarchy which we are going to establish so that this is clearly known when we look at these trends. There are four hierarchies we have got from the decelerating order: positive, uncertain, which implies limited or incomplete information for making accurate assessment; concern, or indicators suggesting possible deterioration; and finally, negative. Coming on to the global trends and forecast, the vectors which we are going to examine are, firstly, the unilateral use of military power, and the trends continue to be negative, with the forecast also negative. As we know, the live threat over attacks by the United States and Israel on Iran remain a concern, whereas there are other trends, including the war in Ukraine, where there is no ceasefire as such, but the contested positions on the ground are continuing with heavy casualties. Geopolitical uncertainty, again, on the negative. You have multilateralism, no change in the trend of uncertainty of globalization and multilateral powers gaining institutional support. Great power competition is another corollary to this, and so is the UN influence. Despite the United Nations being a part of the Gaza Accords as identified by US President Donald Trump, the manner in which it can influence these remains limited for the United Nations. Energy security has seen a positive after the recession of threat of strikes, at least temporarily, by the United States and Israel on Iran. So we are in the uncertain category for the past 2 weeks. The alliance system, NATO and Euro-Atlantic in particular, which we are looking at, that has shown some positive trends, but still remains uncertain given the fractional divide between the views of the United States and the European member states. This is particularly over the Greenland issue. While US President has said that he will no longer use military power to occupy or to seize Greenland, and sought discussions with other NATO members, we will see how this issue progresses. Let's come on to the Middle East, which is another hotspot. As you're well aware, regional state stability remains in the negative, whether it's Iran, Syria, or Lebanon. External intervention also in the negative in Iran, Yemen, Somalia, and Gaza. The state non-state actor conflicts are quite on the rise in Yemen, Somaliland, and thus we give them a negative attribute. Interstate conflicts. Well, as we know, Iran, Israel, and US, as well as Saudi Arabia, UAE, considerable concerns were there of a clash breaking out. Last week it was uncertain, but this week we have recorded concerns. So there's a negative trend. Internal political situation in Iran, the protests which were happening from 28th of December and which spiked on 8th of January have now been curbed with a heavy hand. The casualties, even the state authorities admit, are over 3,000, almost touching 4,000. But the protests have subsided, whatever be the means used. So we are recording as a positive trend. Humanitarian crisis, Palestine and Gaza is, of course, continues to be negative. Let's look at the Indo-Pacific trends and forecasts, which is another global contested zone per se. A leadership summit between South Korea and Japan indicated positive trends between the two Northeast Asian economic powerhouses. Great power competition, that is US-China or China-Japan, has moved into the uncertain territory in the past 2 weeks and it is continuing. Alliance stress, US and allies in Quad, again uncertain due to the commitment of the United States to the Indo-Pacific per se, which remains untested. Cambodia and Thailand interstate conflict is continuing to go in the positive direction last week, but now has suddenly gone on to the uncertainty as Cambodia has claimed that the Thai government, which is in the election mode, is likely to use the border conflict as a trigger for creating uncertainty and winning the popular vote. Internal political situation in Taiwan again has moved in the negative direction from uncertain to negative. Now let's look at South Asia, which remains a global hotspot despite not being in a conflict zone per se, at least temporarily. If you see interstate conflict between Pakistan and India or Pakistan and Afghanistan, the trends are negative. There is no breakthrough on any side on the recession of use of violence. Elections, 3 countries in the region, including Myanmar, are going for elections. Myanmar, Bangladesh, and Nepal. Elections in Myanmar, 2 phases have been concluded and the third phase is ongoing. But the overall election is being considered as a negative trend and it's not likely to bring stability because it's a completely rigged and manipulated polls by the military. Moreover, there are many areas which are now under control of the National Unity Government-led resistance forces and the ethnic armed groups. So the situation is quite contested. Bangladesh and Nepal have commenced the election processes in full vigor, though we are recording uncertain trends due to various factors, including violence on the ground. Terrorism in Pakistan will continue to remain concern, though the violence has gone down in the past 2 weeks. A strategic convergence between China and Pakistan has shown a positive trend, with Pakistan hoping that CPEC 2.0, which moves from infrastructure support by China to digital, agriculture and other areas, will provide substantial growth to the country's economy as well as the technological capabilities. India-Bangladesh relations have moved from concern to the negative direction, essentially because of certain developments, particularly the declaration by the Indian Ministry of External Affairs that the Bangladesh will be a non-family station and has called for non-essential personnel to be pulled out from the country. Political exclusion in Afghanistan and Pakistan continues to remain a concern. In Afghanistan, it's completely exclusive Taliban rule, whereas in Pakistan, it's a managed government supported by the Pakistan army, whereas the opposition is marginalized despite the nomination of a leader of opposition in the parliament. Humanitarian stress in Afghanistan is moving to the negative territory, and we envisage that given the current winters with heavy snowfall, and possibility of earthquakes, there will be no progress in this direction. The internal security situation in Bangladesh, despite the elections and large deployment of security forces, continues to be in the negative, primarily because of contested violence during the campaigning as well as random acts which are even targeting not just the minorities but others. As far as India is concerned, India's trends and forecast primarily, let's talk about the geopolitical dilemma which continues for New Delhi, Venezuela, Iran, Myanmar, and now the Gaza board. Though the United States has invited India to be part of the Gaza board, the first meeting did not see Prime Minister Modi or any other representative attending. At the same time, India did not outrightly reject being part of it like other countries as France. Economic diplomacy with European Union is expected to have a positive trend with the free trade agreement, or at least part of it, likely to be finalized in the next week. Neighborhood stress, Bangladesh, we already highlighted in the negative. Maritime and coastal security in the Indian Ocean region remains in the positive track. Defense capability building, Indian Air Force has moved from negative to concern. So one step up, primarily because the Defense Procurement Board, headed by the Defense Secretary, has approved the Indian Air Force proposal for acquiring 114 Rafale 4.5 generation fighters from France. There are many more steps to be taken before any contract can be concluded, and finally, the first aircraft from this lot starts flying in the country. Indian Navy has shown positive trends as far as capability building is concerned. The youth employment in urban and rural areas in India continues to be a concern, and various economists have highlighted the growth which does not provide employment as a big challenge. Militancy in Northeast and Jammu and Kashmir is uncertain, given the political initiatives are not being undertaken by the governments to resolve the militancy. Thus, management is the focus. Radicalization at the all India level also again a concern. It was expressed by no less a person than the Home Secretary of India, and I think some positive developments on this side with the actions by the government should be appreciated, provided the civil society and religious organizations also offer their support. Thank you for listening in. Before we close, here's a disclaimer. Please note that the trends and forecasts are derived from qualitative analysis of publicly available information. All recipients are encouraged to conduct their own evaluations before making any policy or operational decisions. Thank you.